Want to know why? Ask how. Howard, the humongous. There's an issue at the heart of the Trump transition, and at the heart of the giant Republican wins in the Senate and the House that the press is not tracking. It's one of the most emotional issues in the domestic policy of the entire United States. It's legislation to ban abortion. Trump and Pence favor legislation that says, in essence, that the minute you become pregnant, your body does not belong to you. It belongs to the government, and there's a bigger danger in the coming assault against abortion rights than just the incoming president, Donald Trump. Yes, on March 30th, 2016, Trump said in a town hall-style forum with Chris Matthews of MSNBC that women should be punished for having an abortion. But Trump said it reluctantly, and he changed his mind almost instantly. He put out another statement that said that only the abortion doctor should be punished. How kind of him. That's bad enough, but the real danger comes from Trump's vice president, Mike Pence. Donald Trump wants to allow states to ban abortion, and he wants to make it possible for states to criminalize abortion providers. That sounds like it puts a massive burden on women, forcing them to go to other states for abortions. Look, getting into a car, going to another state, and staying for a few nights in a motel is far beyond the budgets of teenagers and of women in the lower economic classes. Nonetheless, it's endurable, right? Wrong. It doesn't abandon abortion everywhere in the USA, right? Wrong. Why? Because there is a bigger danger to your freedom of choice that I mentioned a minute ago than just Donald Trump. He is Mike Pence. Mike Pence has a disturbing track record in Congress of co-sponsoring and voting for laws against abortion. And one of the anti-abortion bills that Mike Pence has voted for says that you can go to jail for a year for transporting a minor across state lines to have an abortion. There goes your chances to have an abortion in another state. That's in a bill Pence voted yes for on May 14th of 2005. That means you can't drive your daughter or your girlfriend to a state that's more choice-oriented and abortion-friendly than yours to have an abortion. Unless she can drive herself, your daughter, your girlfriend, remains a prisoner of the despotic state she happens to live in. Then there's another insidious bill that Mike Pence co-sponsored in 2007. It gives a zygote, get this, it gives a zygote status as a full-fledged human being with constitutional rights. Yes, constitutional rights that make the will of the mother null and void. Inside a newly impregnated woman, a cluster of cells is dividing to form a ball, then to form a hollow sphere like a basketball. According to Mike Pence, it's not the woman in whose womb this is happening who has the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It's the ball of cells. That ball of cells, according to Mike Pence and his legislative track record, has its right to life, liberty, and happiness protected by the Constitution. And what does that mean for the woman in whose womb that ball is growing? Her life, liberty, and happiness are now the property of the state in which she lives, of the government. She no longer has the freedoms guaranteed to every citizen of the United States, at least when it comes to what's going on in her womb. And she no longer has a right to the next 20 years of her life, the years it will take to raise a child. The government owns her. In other words, on the abortion issue, Mike Pence and his right-wing Christian Republican colleagues want big government, very big government. In fact, they want a tyranny. A little bit of history may come in handy. Way back in the 1960s, a generation of rebels started a sexual revolution. I was a part of that revolution, hard as that is to believe. You can read the story in my book, How I Accidentally Started the 60s, which will come out in the spring. But right-wing Christian conservatives were horrified by the 60s. And they've been trying to reverse the sexual revolution ever since. In fact, reversing that revolution by banning abortion has been one of their most emotional, hot-button issues. For example, Kellyanne Conway, Trump's quick-on-her-tongue spokesperson, admits that her single greatest reason for joining the Trump campaign was her passionate commitment to abolishing, to banning, to outlawing abortion. Why does this issue arouse so much passion among both Republicans and Democrats? Good question. Republicans and Democrats differ on something we don't normally acknowledge. The right and the left differ on what evolutionary biologists call reproductive strategies. Scientific studies show that Republicans have more kids than Democrats. They pursue what evolutionary biologists call the R strategy. What's the R strategy? Have lots of babies and put a small investment into each one of them. Prepare for a violent world in which you could lose your children at any time. On the other hand, Democrats use what evolutionary biologists call the K strategy. What in the world is the K strategy? Have very few kids and put a huge investment into each one of them. Bank on a peaceful world. Without knowing it, Trump and Pence are threatening to impose the R strategy, their Republican, conservative, Christian reproductive strategy, on all of us, by forcing pregnant women to reproduce, whether they want to or not. But there's more. Dominant animals stop lower-ranking members of the group from having sex. Dominant lobsters, lizards, wolves, and chimpanzees stomp out the sexual privileges of those beneath them. Why? So the alpha, the boss, can monopolize the sexual act, and so the folks on top of the heap can make the entire group serve their children, serve their genes. In those who are not chiefs, in humans, every tribe or nation stomps on the sexual privileges of those who are not chiefs. It's how a culture is structured, by sexual prohibitions. In other words, the urge to crush the sexual pleasures of others is built, of all things, into our biology. That explains why policing the sexual lives of others seems to provide one of our greatest thrills in life. Just look at the sexual gossip that swirled around Donald Trump during the presidential campaign, to give you an indication of how deeply that thrill excites us. Meanwhile, fundamentalist Christians have been trying to limit the sexual privileges of those who disagree with them since 1915, when a series of 12 books started modern Christian fundamentalism. That means right-wing religionists have been trying to limit the sexual privileges of folks like you and me for 101 years. But that's not all. Conservatives have been trying to achieve a secondary benefit to their anti-abortion policies. They want to undo the liberation of women. They want to turn women into what women were 60 years ago: the servants, the handmaidens of their husbands and their children, the subordinates. How do conservatives intend to pull this off? Through laws. Through the new laws and roughly 4 Supreme Court appointments that Donald Trump will put into effect in the next 4 years. Remember, Donald Trump did not have the patience or knowledge to put together a list of potential Supreme Court justices. So he did something wise, which he very seldom does. He delegated authority. It appears that he turned the job over to the Republican Party's conservative cabal, the Republican Party's far-right evangelical Christian crew. And those who gave Trump his list of potential Supreme Court appointees had a litmus test. You could only make it onto the list of candidates for Supreme Court if you wanted to abolish Roe versus Wade, the Supreme Court ruling that made abortion legal in 1973. Donald Trump's vice president, Mike Pence, is very explicit about that goal. He says he wants to see Roe versus Wade dumped into, quote, the ash heap of history, close quote, which means your rights as a woman are in danger of being stolen. That's just one of the reasons to fear and oppose Donald Trump and Mike Pence. Not to mention one of the reasons to oppose Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell, the Republican leaders who will have Congress and the Senate in a headlock this coming January. Abortion is the key to women's liberation. It is the key to the sexual revolution. And it is the key to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness for half of America's citizens. Its female half. Donald Trump and Mike Pence are likely to take that key to freedom away. If you are a woman, Trump and Pence want to steal your constitutional rights. And Trump and Pence want to hand your constitutional guarantees to balls of cells, to zygotes. Zygotes that the government of the far right plans to use to control you and to shut down your personal choice. It's our job to make sure that Trump, Pence, Ryan, and McConnell can't get away with it. This is Howard the Humongous speaking to you from the future, that it's your job and my job more than ever to make. Or, what? There's nothing to laugh about here. Stop laughing. Want to know why? Ask how. And now for the sleazy, slimy, seditious, hopscotching, rattlesnaking little, where is it? Off button. It's back there someplace.